Okay, so as people are trickling in, let's get started. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to ESS Support Services Annual Positive Aging Summit. This is the third time we're hosting this virtual conference, and we're so happy to have all of you join us this morning, and we're just so excited for what we have lined up for you all over the next 2 days. So as you see on my screen, or your screen, my name is Jamie, and I'm the Manager of Community Development and the Hearts Caregiver Program here at ESS. The Hearts Caregiver Program is a program funded by the Allen Slate Seniors Fund through United Way Greater Toronto for the purpose of providing caregiver support for older adults who are caring for persons with developmental disabilities. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Allison, you're getting... sorry, give me 1 second. Just a couple of items before we get started. Please keep your mics off during the presentations. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them into the chat or raise your hand. So to do this, if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, there is a raise hand button that's located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen when you click the reactions tab. So the moderator, Cynthia, will try her best to answer any of the questions in a timely manner. But there's always going to be a time for questions at the very end of each presentation. As well, we're going to be taking some pictures over the course of the day. So if you do not wish to have your photo taken, please feel free to turn off your camera. And as some of you have noticed, we're actually going to be recording the sessions, and these recordings will be made available on our ESS website after the event. So first, we would like to start off the day with a land acknowledgement. The City of Toronto acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. The city also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We also acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrant, either in this generation or in the generations past, and those who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today, we pay tribute to the ancestors of those of African origin and descent. With that, I am so pleased to announce our first guest speaker, Rebekah Churchyard, CEO of Green Care Farms. Rebekah Churchyard is a BA, BSW, MSW, RSW, PMP, literally every single acronym in the book. She is a social worker and project manager and psychotherapist. Rebekah currently works as a mental health care coordinator in a specialized geriatric services with the Home and Community Care Support Services of Waterloo, Wellington. Prior to this, while living in Toronto and working as a project manager for the neighborhood group, Rebekah gained extensive volunteer experience in charitable board governance and in municipal policy. She has served as acting president and vice president with the Toronto Council on Aging Board of Directors, as an accountability table member with the City of Toronto Senior Strategy. And as a tribute to her grandparents, Rebekah founded Green Care Farms in 2021, located in Halton Hills in Milton, Ontario, and her work as CEO of Green Care Farms delivers the first ever nature-based program in Canada for people with dementia on an operational farm. So, in saying that, please join me in introducing Rebekah Churchyard as our first guest speaker of the day.
Hi, everybody. Okay, thanks for having me. I'm going to get started on the configuration of the share screen. Is this working so far?
You're good to go.
You don't see any squares?
Nope, we are good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so hello, I'm Rebekah, and I want to begin by acknowledging what an honor and a pleasure it is to be presenting on Green Care Farms at the Positive Aging Summit with ESS. I've been looking forward to this since last year, and I thank you so much for your interest and for having me today. So my presentation is empowering people living with dementia with outdoor programming, and I'll explain more about that. And all the pictures that you see here, almost all of them, are from the farm directly. So this is our arbor in the middle. Okay, here is the agenda for today. I just want you all to know that I love engagement. I absolutely welcome your questions at the end of the presentation. I'm very interested to know what people are thinking about and what questions they have. So please hold on to them at the end of the presentation. Or if you're worried you can't hold on to it, you can put it in the chat and we can absolutely address that later. I have a lot to share with you today, and I will try to move fairly quickly so that I can cover it all. I'm going to begin with where it started for me, which is my story. Every time I present on my company, I return to my roots. These two people are my grandparents, Ron and Helen. They were teachers, business owners, and nature lovers who lived in Bellwood, Ontario. My grandpa was only 63 years old when he was diagnosed with dementia. He did not like traditional adult day programs, and he wanted to be outside, as he has been for most of his life. Safety was an issue, and he needed supervision. My grandma was a busy caregiver, and she was overwhelmed. This is my grandma and my grandpa together when they were in their late 50s. So as they moved from teaching, so they were teachers before, and then into their retirement, they spent almost all of their free time outside and working on their Christmas tree business, which was called Bellwood Valley Tree Farm. This was a huge part of my childhood. I too was working on the farm often, and I got to experience a lot of interesting things there and learned a lot about nature. Their beautiful Christmas trees often won prizes, so I remember that too, going to shows and just kind of being part of the Bellwood Valley Tree Farm brand, which is an interesting experience given kind of the current state of Christmas tree farms in Ontario. This is my grandma and I having lunch after I started my second degree in university, and she absolutely is one of my best friends, and I miss her all the time. So I know, and you know, that caregiving needs so much more attention. In Ontario today, there are about 500,000 people with dementia. Those numbers are very hard to pin down exactly with projections and prevalence incidents and all of those things, but there's about 500,000. Our older adult population will grow by 68% in the next 20 years. Many of us already know someone with dementia, and if you don't, I am sure you will soon. A dementia diagnosis impacts the whole family. Caregivers spend an average of 26 hours per week providing care. My family definitely struggled. The current costs of care are expected to double in the next decade, reaching $16.6 billion per year by 2031. And despite this, we still face a number of pain points. We have a lack of respite for caregivers. We have no outdoor or rural programs. And right now, we have no disease-modifying medical treatments. We are in dire need for more options for families. My experience with my family was that the people might pass away, but these problems don't. Like I said, my grandparents had a Christmas tree farm, and I grew up working on that farm during the summer and on the winter, all the time, on the weekends. So the bottom right picture is us together right before my grandpa was diagnosed, right there. I miss them all the time, and they remain my motivation for this work. I founded Green Care Farms in April 2021. And that program operates out of a farm located in Milton, Ontario. I should mention that they both passed away in 2014, just to give kind of a timeline there. Excuse me. Okay, so what is a green care farm? This definition is borrowed, so the language is a little bit different than what I might write, but this is a verified definition. So green care farms combine agricultural activities with care services for a diverse range of client groups from the healthcare and welfare sectors, such people with psychiatric conditions, addictions, mental differences, children with autism, and people with dementia. They don't necessarily need to be older, but people with dementia. There are absolutely thousands of care farms in the Netherlands, as well as hundreds across Europe and the UK. They are all over the world, but here in any sort of significant way. Care farms are amazing for many different populations. In this case, I'm going to focus on people with dementia. So my company, Green Care Farms, is the only care farm for people with dementia in Canada, and we are the first. So Green Care Farms gives people with dementia a chance to continue working and doing work that they enjoy in a safe way. It is programming that keeps people with dementia well, physically, socially, and emotionally. It provides participants with purpose and responsibilities. With farmer cooperation and appropriate staffing, a care farm could be provided on almost any operational farm. So just drawing your attention to some of the farm activities, and these are fairly generalizable to a lot of different farms. We do a lot of garden planning and designing, horticulture, so activities like you would do in your own garden, so planting, weeding, watering, that sort of plant care proponent. Animal care, we might feed some of the chickens, goats, pigs, alpacas in the space, but we don't enter the pen with them. We do a lot of cleaning up, custodial duties, making sure that the garden looks nice. Right now the hens aren't laying, but there's a possibility of doing egg collection if they are. General property maintenance, and absolutely one of the most fun things is harvesting all of the vegetables once they're ready. Pardon me. You might be wondering, is this model evidence-based with science? The answer is yes. There is tons of research around the world that shows the benefits of care farms. This type of program can delay admission to long-term care by building cognitive resilience, keeping people physically active, and providing respite to care partners. My company has gathered 48 citations overviewing the evidence demonstrating benefits of green care farms specific to mental health, social well-being, and physical function. I will review these findings briefly in the next few slides, and you can always find more information on our website where we have included those citations for people to review further. So for mental health, there are many studies that show the increase of cognitive functioning, general emotional and psychological well-being, an increase in quality of sleep, an increase in better mood, more positive mood, an increase in sense of autonomy, identity, and self-satisfaction and awareness, that sense of self-efficacy and autonomy we all need, which is I can do things for myself. I have a place to belong. I am important in my society. And we also see a decrease in cognitive decline, depression, and the use of antipsychotics, as well as stress and agitation. And the farm is a very healing place to be, so I can firsthand attest to that. It's hard if you're stressed out there. There's a lot of increases when it comes to social health. So people are part of a community and they have relationships with others, and those are very supported relationships. So there's less of a feeling of saying or doing something wrong, and kind of anything goes there. And that's why we have such a high staffing ratio, which I'll talk about in a minute. So there's an increase in social interactions and engagement, and we all know what an issue social isolation is, as well as loneliness. So being unable to have relationships with others and feeling like you don't belong when you are even maybe in proximity with others, which is definition of loneliness. So there's a decrease in both of those items in the literature, and there's an increase in that kind of life satisfaction connected to the social integration, that feeling of belonging in a community and that you are needed, wanted, appreciated, all of those things. For physical health, and this is really exciting research, and there's more and more coming out every day, there's an increase in physical functioning. So there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of activation when it comes to your muscles. So there's a lot of use of kinesthetic memory and tertiary memory, which is the use of your muscles in the space. So a lot of people who benefit from this program have gardened for a very long time. Maybe they grew up on a farm, maybe their parents did, but it's very familiar kind of physical function for them. There's an increase in nutritional intake overall, which means, of course, like you generally just have more food going in and your appetite is stimulated because you've been working hard. And there are increases in motor function and functional independence. So that's strength gaining that a lot of us are striving for, to increase mobility and keep our physical function intact. And with that strengthening of muscles and that kind of ambulation and that practice and that exercise, you have a decrease in fall incidence and physical pain. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit. The last few slides so far were kind of introductions. Who am I? What is a care farm? Is this evidence-based? And so all of the research that I just talked about is not research that we did ourselves, but it is research from the body of evidence from around the world. So now I'm going to switch gears and talk very specifically about our program and the 2022 and 2023 seasons so far to date. Okay, so our first program ran last year from May to September 2022. So that is our season, May to September 2022. And I'm sure I might get this question later. We actually don't operate in the winter right now. I would like to, and we are working towards building a greenhouse so that we might be able to do so. As folks who've dealt with greenhouses before can imagine, there are a lot of logistics with that. So the heating, the cooling, the water, we're doing what we can to figure that out. I would love to be able to operate across the winter and be able to clear the snow effectively so that it is accessible. So yeah, our first program ran last year from May to September 2022 in Milton, Ontario, and we just started our second season this year on May 15th. This is our postcard. We're looking to get the word out, especially within 30 kilometers of the farm. So that's in Milton, Ontario. So if you have any connections with locations or organizations near Milton where I can drop some of these postcards, please let me know. We've absolutely learned that word of mouth is still the best way to market and get the word out. So we absolutely need your help with that. Andrew's Farm Market and Winery is our amazing farm partner. So that's that logo just up here on the screen. This is a, pardon me, it's a painted map of the farm, and this is something that lives in the space on the farm. It's just kind of a visual, an interesting visual to show the space of the farm and the walking paths. So notice this red square right here. This is where we operate our sensory garden. So the majority of the Green Care Farms program is operating or running out of this half-acre plot. So it's a half acre of the 165-acre farm. This is the entrance, this yellow dot. So we're just a quick walk from the entrance to the half-acre plot. Okay, so I have one goal today. I want you all to see that it is possible to have a green care farm in every community in Canada. That is our mission and our vision, and I really hope that people leave today really curious about, hey, how come we don't have more of those? Why didn't I know about this? And to be wanting these types of programs. So I want you all to see that it is possible to have a green care farm in every community in Canada, and I'm definitely committed to that. So my company began groundwork for the year 2022 in the summer of 2021. The half-acre plot designated for the sensory garden is seen here behind me. So this is like before anything was happening in that space related to the Green Care Farm. And then you can see here again, it's another more clear shot of that plot. And you can see that shed, which is a little bit of a marker. So in future photos, this shed is going to move to over here, if that helps orient in the space at all. So this is before anything started, before the beginning, you could even say. Okay, so super quick. How can you design farmland for nature-based engagement for people with dementia? The massive question. So I worked with Meredith Wilson, a student in landscape architecture at UBC, to create this Green Care Farms design guide. It's a basic toolkit for people designing a care farm. And it covers more of kind of the landscape architecture elements, the key principles, how to engage and bolster the 5 senses in the space, the grading, which is extremely important for terrain and the ground on the farm, the space itself. So how much, what does it look like? Where's the 3D components, as well as the planting, the considerations for planting when it comes to the sensory engagement. So it's like a basic toolkit. This is one of the concept drawings we did to show the variety of heights that we were working towards to support accessibility for people who might have a harder time bending down and getting low to the ground, as well as those with cognitive related changes in visual perception. So a lot of folks on the call will know that a lot of people with dementia and neurocognitive disorders have what we call like a visual field loss, and that is in the periphery vision, and it's sort of like a tunnel vision, but it's different for everyone. Okay, so to recap, this program is a proven model where members engage in activities on an operational farm. The research shows this type of program stimulates the brain and slows cognitive decline. My company is called Green Care Farms. Our social enterprise helps people with dementia be active outdoors and feel accomplished doing meaningful tasks, while caregivers get a much needed break. This day program is the first product stemming from a company with a far greater vision. So right now we're serving the 12,000 people with dementia living in Halton region. That's the number of people that we can estimate are living with dementia in the Halton region. We are committed to a 3-to-1 staffing ratio of green care providers. That is a brand new role for trained healthcare professionals to be working on a farm. So the backgrounds that are usually inclusive in the green care provider job description are nurses, PSWs, mostly nurses or PSWs, as they need to be able to provide someone with their activities of daily living, that one-to-one direct care support. So that's who we're usually hiring into the green care provider role. Okay, community days. So in early spring 2022, we had to figure out how we were going to change the plot from kind of that flat landscape that you saw into different varieties of heights and different aesthetic things to look at to engage with the senses. So we gathered about 40 volunteers together over 3 community days to build a whole bunch of boxes, raised beds, and accessible benches, as well as get the trellis built and the arbor built, and just have a lot of visual, interesting things to look at on the farm. That's me sitting on one of the benches. And this is kind of some of people working away on the boxes. So obviously the earth matters to us. That's part of being a social enterprise, is we are very environmentally conscious. And we were excited to reuse scrap materials and boxes from the farm. So very few of the materials that we used were brand new. We really wanted to kind of rescue materials from the junk pile at the farm and see if we could give them a new life with the Green Care Farm plot. And I should mention that we actually just finished up our other community days for this year. And it was so interesting to see like what more we were able to do when we were finished building those structures. So it was very much focused on cleaning up the garden after the winter and adding more mulch down, which is lovely. As many of you know, the weeds can be quite aggressive, especially dandelions in early May. So it was really nice to be able to kind of do a level 2 of the community day where we were adding more garden plots, expanding garden plots, those sorts of concepts this year. And this year we had 50 people out over 2 community days, and it was a lot of fun. I should say, if anybody's interested in doing the community day with us, please do visit our website. We have a contact us sign up, and there's a tick box that says, I'd like to volunteer. So absolutely, we'd love to have you. We can always use more hands, and it's a really nice healing place to be. So you are welcome, and I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, so this is an aerial view of the half-acre plot taken last year at the beginning of the season. So after the community days, right before we started program. This was taken on May 14th, 2022. So I want to, and this was taken from a drone. So that's like those things that fly around in the air and take a picture. That's how I got this aerial shot. So we have many accessible design features that include the garden boxes, raised beds. So none of the beds that we have are flush to the ground. They are raised up and mounded. We have trellises. So those are in the back there. I know it might be tricky to see, but those are A-frame trellises that we rebuilt out of discarded like old fencing, which is a neat use of that material. Custom benches, those are mostly, we keep them alongside the tree line there under the shade, but they move around. The picnic tables and the benches move around quite a bit to go where the people are and where the sun isn't. And then also the arbor frame in the middle here, which is what you saw the climbing vines, or they were scarlet runner beans actually. And that's what you see there. And then our shed, which did move. And I'm super excited that this year we now have a sink there, which is awesome. So beside our planting bench, we now have a sink, a running sink, which is amazing. Okay, so I'm going to take us through a whirlwind of photos from last season to give you kind of an idea of what the program looks like over the season. So we're running on Mondays from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So the cohort of clients come once a week, and this is really their space. They can do whatever they like to in this space. We always have ideas about tasks or prompts, but we absolutely encourage people to do what they're interested in doing and where they feel like contributing. Or if they're looking for more of a passive enjoyment experience, that's always okay too. Okay, so as we know, or as I would say we know by now, there is danger living in perfectly sterile environments. So Green Care Farm structures our programming on engaging with living things. Every time you have a sensory engagement, it results in neural activity, which is a way of saying that your brain has to deal with the stimulus. It has to organize it somehow. It needs to put it somewhere in its processing. So in the next few slides, when I show you the images from the farm, I want you to imagine the redirection, the engagement, and the prompts that staff will provide to participants and asking them some of the questions on this slide. What do you see? What can you hear? What do you taste? What do you smell? What do you feel or touch? I think that this is so important because a lot of what we rely on, even with people with dementia, is spoken word. And many of us know that People with dementia, such as my grandpa, he almost was not able to talk by the time he left us. There's a change often in verbal fluency and the ability to produce words and sentences. So what I love about these forms of engagement is it results in synaptic brain activity from brain areas other than spoken words. When you're smelling something, you're seeing something, you're hearing something. That's synaptic brain activity. Your brain still needs to process it, but it doesn't have to do with talking, which I can say from my experience, I think that's a pretty stressful thing for some people with dementia when they know, hey, I'm not able to respond to what they're asking me, or I'm not sure I understand, and it can be difficult. So I really like the idea and the focus of sensory engagement, which is why we call it the sensory garden. Okay, so imagining that, all of the sensory components, this is May of last year, and we had lots and lots of planting, preparing the ground with soil, compost, mulch, alfalfa. So there's a lot of prep to make sure that the ground has the nutrients it needs, that the soil is healthy and it's ready to grow the food that we're asking it to. And a big part of us getting started is always growing new relationships. So like any social group, we're getting to know each other. We're trying to figure out who's going to do what, and what different people, what their interests are, what their backgrounds are, where they're from, like those sorts of things, as you would with any new community. This is us putting our sign up at the farm. So you can see there, I love our lady there, and she's on a lot of our images, and just our tagline, empowering people with dementia. So this is our sign up. We put that up first thing in the season. The first thing's ready, besides asparagus and cherries. So we've got, I think it's about 6 beautiful cherry trees that line the plot on the right-hand side, and those are ready very early, and so is the asparagus behind us. After that, the first things ready were the strawberries there. We have ever-bearing strawberries, and we've been actually transplanting a lot of them from the back of the plot to the front of the plot because they're easy to pick and easy to eat. So we're interested in that. And these are a lot of the herbs that we had. We have massive orders of herbs because their sensory properties are just incredible. And of course, like the smells and the uses in cooking and eating them straight and making tea, things like that. So we have a lot of herbs. Okay, so we used, I don't know if where can we see them? Those orange flags here and there, and you'll see some there. We use those flags to kind of mark where we were going to plant seeds in the early days. Obviously, like you can see by now, there's a lot of work to do. Always, the work is endless. So in future years, what we're aiming to do is have some better signage that also has pictures of the plants to have a bit more of like a universal inclusive model of the way that we're showing what's planted. And a lot of all over the world, people can recognize plant species and figure out, oh yeah, I know what this is. I know how to use this in cooking. And so we're doing our best to kind of label things as much as we can so that people can recognize things that they know growing. So this is June, still pretty brown with little tiny starting plants. Those were the Mexican sunflowers that we put at the front. You'll see pictures later. They're absolutely stunning, and the bees and birds love them. Pollinators are very important. I will talk about that too. Okay, yes, so we began moving. This is my industry specialist mentor from Rise Ventures, which is a women in business program with Guelph Innovation. And Sandra Harriet has been instrumental in helping me kind of figure things out. As you heard, I'm a social worker by background, education and training. So that is why I pursued a project management professional training to help me kind of figure out how to design and operate a business. And Sandra has been very helpful. So she's on a site visit with us. And then here we are very grateful for the help from tractors, and the staff on Andrews Farm Market and Winery have been outstanding. I couldn't say enough good things about them. They have been so helpful in helping us move around equipment and make sure that we have what we need and help us order, a bunch of mulch and things like that. So thank goodness for tractors and for our helpers. So we grew over 40 types of produce in our half-acre plot. Blueberries, raspberries, sugar baby watermelons, tomatoes, peppers, celery, lovage, herbs, and so many different types of summer squash. We had over 10 varieties of beans growing on our trellises, so the climbers. And as I mentioned before, it was amazing to see the scarlet runner beans take off and grow over the arbor. I was really going for a secret garden kind of effect. I don't think we quite got there last year, but I'm hopeful to do it this year, and they're in the ground, and I hope that they'll be growing. We had so many pollinators visit our garden, and this is in July. It's really starting to pick up. You're starting to see a lot of that color and a lot of those flowers, which pollinators love. That's why they come. So I saw more hummingbirds last summer than I have seen in my entire life. And this year we're even trying to plant more things that attract butterflies and um, hummingbirds and just those kind of the pollinators that we want in our garden for its health. So this year we have calendula and also milkweed going in closer to where we have some of the flower beds. So it's kind of, we're not containing, but we're giving them a lot of food, a lot of reason to come to our plot. So the hummingbirds are always too quick for me to get photos of them. So I don't have any of them. They're very sweet and very quick for those who have seen a hummingbird. They're just such a graceful thing to observe. We had a ton of different butterflies. So at least 3 different species of butterflies. I know we'll be getting more this year because we're trying for it. And at least 8 different species of bees, which are very important for pollination for plants. It's always a good sign for a garden. I wanted to include this slide because I think it's so important to think about, what neat living things have you seen in your gardening adventures or in your outdoor adventures? And to me, this is really kind of the antithesis of the sterile environment, where the way that environment is created, it is so that you don't have exposure to some of these living things that require biodiversity, that require that ecological setup and maintenance, kind of like the pollinators we were just talking about. So people might recognize this. Mine for last year was to see this cool thing in nature, which is a tomato hornworm caterpillar. It is absolutely massive. It was bigger than my biggest finger and so thick and juicy. And so I was completely flabbergasted when I saw this little thing, big little thing, and it has a horn. It has a black horn. So I wasn't sure if it was going to hurt me or what was going on, but turns out they're super harmless. They just devour tomatoes not faster than they can grow, but they can eat like a huge tomato in one day. And eventually they turn into hawk moths or sphinx moths, which has like a 6-inch wingspan. Anyways, I thought this was a very neat living thing, and that curiosity, that kind of the awe that is inspired by seeing things like that, I think we should have that in our lives until our very last days with this earth. And so I included that just to kind of remind everybody how much fun it is to have that curiosity and that hands-on learning. As I mentioned, we had, oh wait, I went back, that's why. Sorry about that. Okay, so July is when things started to get really, really colorful. So we had a lot of, you can see all the flowers blooming here. It's where the color starts to take over, recognizing where all the plants are and where our produce is growing. So I love the next few pictures because they really show the vibrance. And what's really nice about getting to experience the color and the vibrance is that you see the growth of what you put in the ground and the results from this within just a few months. It's a beautiful experience. So we had a ton of flowers grow there. I'm sure that folks can recognize a lot of these flowers from their own gardens. These were the Mexican sunflowers that really took off and grew this absolutely beautiful, not like a barrier, but it was a row in front of the roadside, which it's not a busy road. The only tractors go on that road, but we still wanted to have a little bit of like a visual disruption between the road and then our plot. And then you'll see, as you had in other pictures, that there's snow fencing that lines our entire sensory garden, and that is to kind of deter folks from leaving the plot, which has never happened. Yeah, so these are a lot of the beautiful flowers, and our personal favorite, sunflowers, which is also something that Andrew's Farm Market and Winery grows in massive, lovely fields. Actually, across from the front of our plot, there was an acre of sunflowers last year, and it was just stunning and so cute to see them all turn their heads to the sun, and just a really lovely experience. So we eat lunch together every day. We get a catered lunch, and that's always a really nice chance for us to chat about our garden plans, what's going on in our lives, what we'd like to do. Yeah, debrief and plan, but also just our social time to connect with each other. And this is under the closest I got to the secret garden effect. So I'm hoping that the Scarlet Runners will be even more robust this year. We work on rainy days too. So over here on the left, we are absolutely working in our rain gear. Of course, we don't work when there's lightning. I get that question a lot, like what happens when it rains? And what I learned from last year is I think we'll almost always still operate. Last year, we only had one day of true rain worthy of cancellation. Other than that, we just had little kind of 10, 15, 20-minute segments of rain. And my clients, they're mostly nature lovers, outdoor enthusiasts, and for the most part, don't mind getting a little wet. So that's what I learned. Of course, if someone's uncomfortable and they prefer to go inside, we absolutely always have the barn. We have a covered pavilion that we can go to, but we do work on rainy days. I think many folks have probably heard the expression, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. I think it is something like that. So we embody that. We had a lot of neat things growing this year. So these were some of the long beans that we had, which can grow up to like 2 feet sometimes, and they're quite impressive. And we also had in September, we still had strawberries coming, which was really neat. And we had just a varieties of squash that were still coming up. And we got into composting. Now we have a long way to go with our composting piles before we have anything usable, but it was neat to be able to kind of think about starting that kind of turning and regenerative cycle of returning organic matter to the earth. Okay, so the smells, I mean, what an aromatherapy is a thing. And I wouldn't say that we do aromatherapy in its clinical context and those sorts of things, but I personally can say that smelling so many of these different herbs and flowers on the farm is a treat. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. And what we're doing more and more is we're harvesting these herbs in bunches, labeling them, and including some prompts on how to use them in food, mostly in food and in teas and in topical salves, those sorts of things. Okay, on September 17th, we hosted a harvest dinner with soup made from the produce in our garden. So we had a bunch of things ready, we harvested them, and we made this massive soup, like 60 liters of soup. My brother helped with that, and so did his housemates. So we had over 70 community members come, and that was awesome. We put it out on Eventbrite, and we generally just invited people who wanted to come see it. We had some people with dementia coming with their care partners, and it was really beautiful to see so many people in the space and just appreciating what was going on there, that this was a space for people with dementia to belong and contribute. And as some of my clients say, like that's their work, right? They're going to work, they're going to do this thing, which they have every Monday. And that's a very meaningful experience for them. So this is my mom, this lady in the top right corner, and my grandpa Ron was her dad. The bottom right picture is a very warm hug from a care partner who told me that this program changed her life because she's getting that 5 hours of respite back, and her person with dementia is enjoying their day, those are my aims. Number one, meaningful and fun engagement for the person with dementia. And number two, a block of respite for the care partner. So important. I don't do this by myself. So my team is extremely important and amazing. As I mentioned, right, we know I'm a social worker. We know I have a project management designation. I specialize in gerontology, and I still work with people with dementia every day. Our core team and advisory committee consists of 14 experts in cognition, research, agriculture, horticulture, industry, and most importantly, people with dementia. There's been a few changes on this slide here of the photos, so I need to update those changes, but for the most part, it's still intact. Through my network, I have been able to form partnerships with a large farm, that's Andrews, a home care company, Right at Home for our staffing contract, and the Alzheimer's Society. So in addition to Andrews, we have 2 other community partners who have been amazing. We are delighted to be able to donate extra produce from the Sensory Garden to the Food for Life Food Bank. So when we're explaining this program to our prospective members, we are letting them know that what we do, so the people who are participating in the program, everyone takes home a community share as produce is ready. And then later on, when the productivity of the garden, the yield is just way outpacing what we could possibly eat, then we donate the surplus to the food bank. So it's really nice to explain to our clients that we're looking for help to grow this food so we can donate it to the food bank. I think that's probably resonates with everyone here, that that's a meaningful thing to do, is to help grow food for people who do not have access to fresh food, or there are barriers to getting fresh food. So the Food for Life specializes on that redistribution of produce to people who are, it's a street outreach program. So for the most part, folks might be homebound and unable to kind of get out and get that fresh food themselves. So we're very happy about that. We also purchase our catered lunches from the Lunchbox Cafe with Community Living North Halton. So this cafe is also a social enterprise. It provides people with developmental disabilities differences an opportunity to learn new skills and pursue jobs in the community. So we're really happy to purchase our lunches from them as a bit of a nod to both the developmental difference, intellectual difference community, where care farms are often prominent in other countries, and also just to support what they're doing in their social enterprise. We need so much more of that, where everyone can have a job and a place to belong. And then our staffing partner, who's Right at Home Canada. There was a lot of tomatoes in our donations, a lot. There's other vegetables as well, and apples. We donated 18 boxes of produce to the food bank over last season, which meant that over 1,000 pounds of produce went to them, and just tons of tomatoes. So I really hope, an ambitious goal, but maybe we could even double that this year, who knows? You heard about some research earlier, and as we got started, I knew we needed research to be credible, just a little bit, at least to begin. We were fortunate to partner with McMaster University's Gilbray Center for Studies in Aging to capture our first prototype. So they have completed a phase of research on the motivations and expectations of all stakeholders involved in the creation of a care farm in Canada. This research included staff, volunteers, clients, and their families. So these are before and after shots of the garden, from brown in May to green in September. So this is a brown looking plot, which you saw before, May 2022. And this is after. So you can use that shed as kind of your marker to swing this picture 180 degrees or so. I'm not great with angles, but swing this picture around and you can see that shed again. These rows are over here, and what a difference from brown to green, just the lushness that's here. The sunflowers are over there. There's the apple trees, the cherry trees, and just what a lovely, fragrant, vibrant place it is to be. So this is a picture of me visiting my grandpa in his long-term care home just before he died. And he is my inspiration. He remains my inspiration. My grandpa devoted his life to the environment and hard work. Right now, with what we see in the seniors care sector, we know we need change. We are locking people with dementia inside institutions without access to outdoors, and I know that we can do better. Our older adults deserve to live with dignity and choice, and that's what Green Care Farms is about. I want us to build green care farms for people with dementia in every community, and we can't do it without the support from the community and the awareness and the understanding from the society that we need these sorts of models, these sorts of interventions. I truly, truly believe that people feel most alive when they are surrounded by living things, and I see this day over day in our work. One of our taglines is everything living. So I truly believe that. And I wish he could have had some of that. I think it would have made a big difference for him and he would have had better health outcomes. So I hope that each person will leave this session feeling inspired to do whatever they can to connect nature lovers with dementia back to nature. Okay, so this is some of our contact information. Like many other programs and businesses, we are on social media. You can find us with the handle at Green Care Farms on Instagram, Twitter, what is the other one? Facebook, there we go. And you can also find us on our website, so www.carefarmscanada.com. It also will work if you go to .ca. We have both of those. And there's my email address. I mean, I'm very open. As you can see, I care a lot about this concept. Been told many times I'm very passionate, which is true. I really want to see this difference happen, certainly in my lifetime, as much as we can, just to re-engage people who are living their last days of their life with being outside, being with the sun on their face and the wind in their hair and those sorts of things. So if you have a contribution, you want to chat, or you know somebody, a farmer or a person with dementia who might be interested in this, I'm very open. That is my email address, rebekah @carefarmscanada.com. Okay, I'm going to go off presenter mode now, and I welcome your questions. I would like your questions. So if you have any questions, please do ask away. This is the time.
We have quite, like Rebekah, thank you again. Like
It's
your
fun.
presentation and your information is always, always, always welcome. And the amount of passion that we hear and see is very evident. And so thank you so much for giving your updates on such a monumental program. Like from last year, we can already see so many differences.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah. Your words of wisdom and life lessons have most certainly inspired me, and I can pretty much attest to most of us in this room as healthcare professionals and even as individuals to be able to continue to contribute for more accessible communities and more readily available services for in order to promote healthy and sustainable living. So that being
Yay.
said, in the chat,
Yeah, I can open it.
Allison is asking, what is the cost for clients to participate? How do they get there? And is there a referral process?
Yeah. The cost depends on the care needs. That's kind of one of the things that I would say right away, because we do an intake and assessment to figure out how much support somebody needs. Some people need a one-to-one transfer assist. Some people are fairly functionally intact. And what we do with our intake assessment is ask around that. How much support will you need? How much cognitive support do you need? Generally speaking, I would say the range is between 100 to 150 a day. That's how much it is for the 5-hour program. But what we do is we lump it into a seasonal membership. So the earlier someone signs up, the more cost effective it is for them. Similar to like a gym membership, I guess is a good way to explain it. If you use it, it's a very affordable thing. And if you don't use it, it starts to cost more. So that's kind of the incentive. And there are a lot of perks that come with that membership as well. So we give folks a family season pass to Andrew's Farm Market and Winery. That means that our clients can come anytime with their families and show off the work, show off the space, because it's their thing. So that's really important for us to get as many of the family and who's important to them out to the farm. So that family pass comes with that. There's also the weekly share of the produce, the vegetables that they're taking home every week. I'm trying to remember what else it was. And they have a personalized care plan that comes with that as well. So a few different perks with that. And the community harvest dinner, and we have several other events. We're working on more and more as we build capacity to have times where everyone can come. So people with dementia, as well as people who might want to volunteer. Yeah, thanks. It is a beautiful garden. It takes my breath away. And like I go week over week, I'm just, whoa, like how are all these flowers here? And just seeing the hummingbirds were really, really just struck me, where I thought, okay, I can actually, I would have never realized that you can do something and encourage hummingbirds to come where you are. And now I'm like, I'm motivated. I want more and more hummingbirds in the space. And it's so nice to be around. It's just that proximity to something so graceful and beautiful that I think we should all have. So how do they get there? Right now, it is drop off and pick up. So similar to other ADPs. So what I include in the welcome package is I believe there's 5 different ride services depending on where somebody lives in Halton region. I think they probably had an amalgamation or a merger at some point. So they still kind of have those 5. So what I have in the welcome package for clients is I have links that go to how to figure out which one you're in and then how to sign up for it, right? So if they need that transportation, there's that option. But mostly people are dropped off and picked up. And we're flexible in the hours. So if somebody works, they need to drop someone off earlier, that's okay. Pick them up later, earlier, that's okay. Referral process is mostly word of mouth. So I've been working very hard to build relationships with the Alzheimer's Society. This program isn't for everyone. It's for people who want to be outside. I guess that's what I would say. People who want to be outside, people who want to get their hands dirty, who enjoy this type of work and environment. Like the stuff that we had when my grandpa was going through this didn't match what he needed, and that's okay. We absolutely need them. All of the services that exist, my goodness, do we ever need them? But we also need different things. So that's this program is for people who want to be outside. So other than that, the referral process, because I would tell you what I've learned is that it is so new. I imagine a majority of people just learned what a care farm was today. So it's a very new concept. It often starts with a conversation where we figure out, what is this? Is this an excursion? Is this a drop-in? Like, what is this? So I do a lot of walking people through the FAQ on our website and just kind of walking people through what the design is. Then we get to, here's the person I'm thinking of. Is it a good fit for them? For XYZ reasons. And I would say to the cost perspective, I'm really open. I want people with dementia to be on the farm. So I do absolutely ask the question, is cost a concern? Like, what would work for you? We can work something out. So we internally subsidize. It's just not an official process, is what I would say. If someone cannot afford it, I want them to be able to be outside. So we talk about that. What could you afford? What's affordable? The average ADPs, adult day programs in Ontario, they range from $25 to $50, and they get a $90 subsidy from the government, but they cost about $235 a day to operate. So that's just to give some like the number piece. That price point that we have, 1 to 150, depending on care needs, is really the best I can do. The profit margin could be improved. Okay. As a business owner, I know that very sincerely, but I want people with dementia to be able to be outside and accessing this. So that's my focus right now. So to be able to cover the cost in between, I'm doing a lot of, pitches and business things that just to get the idea out and try to win prize money and things like that. Okay. So that's there. No. So to Luma Care Services, this is the first green care farm for people with dementia in Canada. The second year. It's a lot of work up front, many different considerations from all of the different people, the planet, the environmental considerations, the farm partner, the staffing, like there's so many different considerations. There are a few ways that we can grow. One of them is to deepen or build capacity on site on Milton. So that is to offer multiple program days, right? Different types of programming, those sorts of things. And then the other one is to expand by replication. And that toolkit that I showed briefly, that to me is really the base of what we would do to expand that replication. And I'm not sure how things will go. I'm very committed to this vision and the mission of seeing more care farms in Canada. And I'd be open to kind of changing that more into a consultant or a startup role where we're going to different communities and teaching them, like, who's your leader? Who's interested in doing this? Is there an interested farmer? And then supporting them with the infrastructure that we have. I think that's probably the way to do it, but we're still working on directly operating this one for the second year. So there's no different locations right now. I think too, like there's a lot of nature-based interest. What is so special about this model is it is on a farm. That is critical. The environmental ambiance. I have no other way of explaining this to you except that when a farmer is on a farm, they know where they are, if that makes sense. And it resonates differently than kind of the therapies that we see so often in long-term care and retirement settings, where the therapy is coming to them. It's very different than the blue skies, those open green fields, the tractors around them, just the sounds and the smells. It's a different setting. So I'm very committed to having more programs on farms. Okay. Yes, I love the relationship for donating food as well. Okay, answered all of Patty's questions. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you think it is creative and constructive. I think so too. I feel like there's so much, like, people have potential and abilities till the very end. And I saw something on LinkedIn the other day about, it was like a busy work segment where I think it was Dr. Cameron, I can't remember his first name, was explaining that he has seen in long-term cares that someone would be given a basket of laundry and asked to fold the basket of laundry. Then someone would walk away and dump the laundry on the ground and take the same basket back to somebody and say, we need you to fold this laundry. And I just thought that is so wrong. Like there's so much work to be done in life. We don't need to be doing that. So this busy work concept, we don't need to be doing that. So I just think that there's other ways to give meaningful work, and maybe it takes more support, but there's ways to do it. I think, yeah, just hearing things like that always keeps me going.
And I think one thing that we forget to mention is that Rebekah has been working on this for years. Rebekah was my supervisor when I was doing my master's program. And even then was when she was already implementing this stuff. So it's years in the making.
Years in the making, and I finally am going to the Netherlands in June. I'm going to tour a bunch of care farms there. I'm so excited. There's a researcher from McMaster who's interested in looking at the model for end-of-life palliative care settings. So I'm going with that team, and I'm very excited to see other care farms and learn from them, particularly their operational models when it comes to the funding distributions, because that in Canada, that is why I'm a social enterprise. I haven't seen a viable way otherwise. So I'm really interested to learn from them kind of how they piece things together. But yeah, been doing this for a very long time. Basically, before my grandparents died, I realized they weren't getting their needs met. And then when they died, I became very dissatisfied. And so I wanted to do something different. Because my grandma's health went first in that. So which is very common with caregiving. Like she was completely just burnt out and all of her energy went into providing care for him. And so she died first, and then he died 4 months later. And so it was sad.
And we definitely appreciate all of the compassion you have and the passion you have for this project. Just for the interest of time, your contact information is available and will be made available. So if anyone has any lingering questions, feel free to reach out to Rebekah directly. But since we have a couple more minutes, Nicole is asking what happens during the winter months.
Yeah, so we close program at the end of September. I think I briefly mentioned that we have parts for a greenhouse. We're looking to build it. There's a lot of logistical considerations in running a greenhouse, heating, cooling, depending, water, right, light, all of those factors, the actual structure itself. So if we're running program 1 day a week, we have to be able to cover costs without putting that cost to the client, the participant, the family. I will be hoping there's more of these. I hope so too. And this is where, like, if they hear about somebody who's interested in this, or they're a farmer, or they know somebody, we can talk. Like, there's no commitment to having a conversation. So if people know somebody who are interested in this, I'm very open to talking to them. Very open to kind of sharing what I've learned. And yeah, Waterloo region is definitely, I live there. I live in KW. So this is definitely the next area I'm looking at, either that or Guelph, because I have family in Guelph. Mentioned higher nurse PW or rec therapy. So yes, I would consider it, but it's only if I have the direct care needs met with the staffing hiring already. So I need somebody who can help someone in the washroom. And so as a social worker, we don't really get that training. We need to make sure that we have someone on site who can cover off medically, and also when it comes to like direct physical hands-on care. So once I have that medical hire, I can look at other ones. Okay. I am absolutely concerned about reduction of farmland. There has to be better ways. I mean, that's kind of another discussion in itself, but there has to be other ways. Build density, increase density. I am terrified at losing the farmland that we have. I am so afraid of that for so many different reasons. Absolutely. Yes, it is. They have a lot of different models of care. And we're going to go to the Hodgewick, the dementia village as well. So I think that's everything in the questions, Jamie.
Yes, I think that is all, but your presentation is always one that is very well looked forward to. It's always new information, and it's so good to have you back with us again. So again, if anyone has any other questions, we will be sharing Rebekah's contact information for anyone who may have any lingering questions. Maybe things might come up. I'm seeing a lot of community members here. So maybe some of you might want to connect with Rebekah if you have any partnership opportunities or any other questions like that. So again, thank you, Rebekah, so much, so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And hopefully we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Rebekah. So up next, I'd like to introduce everyone to Amanda Jewson, CEO, founder, and sleep expert, and soon to be registered social worker. So for just some things to note before we start, do you ever find yourself lying in bed, tossing and turning, wondering if you have insomnia, or maybe you're just a bad sleeper? So in this workshop, Amanda's going to be walking you through how to learn and differentiate between normal sleep patterns and insomnia. And she's also going to be discussing the common signs and symptoms of insomnia, as well as ways to identify when your sleep troubles may be due to other factors like stress, anxiety, or other lifestyle habits. She's also going to be covering strategies for improving your sleep hygiene and creating healthy habits, sleep habits to help you to get a better night's rest. So whether you're a chronic insomniac or just looking to improve your sleep quality, this workshop will provide you with practical tips and tools to help you to get to sleep you need to feel rested and refreshed. So with that, please join me in welcoming Amanda to the floor.
Hello, everybody. Wow, this is a big crowd. I am intimidated, but that's okay. We're going to get through this. Just give me a moment while I share my screen, which tends to be the hardest part of the work that we do, right? Okay. All right. Can we all see that so far?
Yes, we can.
I'm going to try to make it full screen. Does that look even better?
Yes, that's perfect.
Amazing. Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Jewson. I am a former teacher, soon to be social worker. I'm very excited to be speaking with you all today about the differences between insomnia or sleep hygiene. And because I think, when we are seeing in the media or, I do a lot of media segments and even the materials and the things that I'm speaking to in my media segments are all related to sleep hygiene. So I really want to be clear on the difference between true insomnia and sleep hygiene so you know what to do and how to improve your sleep. And let me tell you a little story. Okay. My daughter came down with a nasty gastro bug on Tuesday night. And myself and her were up from 2:00 in the morning onwards yesterday. And if this conference was yesterday, would have been a different human being. Sleep, I am so resonating with the importance of sleep today. And I hope that I'm able to pass that on to you. So this is me. Again, my name is Jewson. I was a teacher of 10 years. And after I had my 2 children, I really began to identify with the importance of sleep. I suffered from postpartum anxiety myself after the birth of my second child and realized quickly after that, at least on those days where I was getting 4 to 6 hours, I was a different person. And a light bulb flicked for me. I had several friends of mine who weren't sleeping with their child. They had new babies and they really became shells of themselves. And even before my children, I had people calling me to tell me when I became pregnant, Amanda, you need to figure out the sleep thing because you won't survive. And they were right. So I was really interested in sleep, sort of anecdotally, even before I started this journey. In 2017, I created Baby's Best Sleep with the intention to help as many folks as I could with sleep. And in 2022, we opened our adult sleep business, Rest My Best. I became certified in CBTI over the summer. And we have 2 practitioners that work in our company, Deanna Gonzalez, who is an MSW, RSW, and we have Amy Robertson, who is an OT. And so if you do decide that, hey, I do have insomnia, there are 3 practitioners to help you. Because we realized, we were getting all of these babies to sleep and parents were super happy and we were happy and they're like, okay, well, what about me? And I'm like, I don't know. Go here. So now we do know, and now we know how to help those folks. So I am hoping today with this presentation that we can talk about sleep hygiene and CBTI. I'm going to hopefully leave you today with some tips that are really tangible for you to get the best sleep of your life and making counting sheep a thing of the past. By the way, counting sheep isn't really effective. I'm sure we've all seen that or tried it. I've tried it. Not super effective. I just want to check, Jamie, will we do questions at the very end or should I pause for questions? Okay, great.
Yeah. So it's up to you. If questions come up, I can interject.
Yeah. And by the way, I can talk about sleep so much and I'm a really good talker. So if you want to shut it down and you want to ask a question in between, please do so. I will not feel interrupted. My whole life is being interrupted because I'm constantly talking. So no offense taken. Oh, sleep, a love-hate relationship. Raise your hand if you love to sleep. I love sleep. I love it so much. It's my favorite thing. I'm not kidding. Every Mother's Day, my husband says, what do you want? And I was like, to sleep for as long as I can. And I get it. And it's free and it's easy. Now raise your hand if you hate it when you can't sleep. Same. Can't stand it. It's the worst. And it does happen. So thankfully the universe was like, Amanda, we really want you to have a tangible, great real life experience. And it gave it to me. So on Tuesday night, my daughter got up at 2:00 in the morning. Said, Mommy, I don't feel well. And honestly, she went back to bed and it was fine, but I couldn't stop ruminating about it. Well, will she wake up again? What time is it? Oh, I have to be up with my other child at this time. But it was awful. We've all been there. And sometimes it can feel like that love-hate relationship, especially when you're not sleeping. Natalia, I see your hand up, but I don't know if that's because you're like, yeah, or if you want me to stop for a question. Okay, I see your hand down now. So you were just with me. Good. Awesome. Insomnia. So the unwanted visitor. One of the most frustrating things about sleep is that when insomnia comes to visit, it's that annoying friend who won't take the hint to leave. You can be like, look, I want to sleep. Why is this happening? Insomnia is when you have difficulty falling asleep or difficulty staying asleep. It doesn't have to be both. It can be one or the other. Even when you do have the opportunity to do so, it's a common sleep disorder that affects millions of people. So you're not alone if you do feel like you might have insomnia. It's very, very common. And so, difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, it could be waking up too early and not being able to fall back to sleep. It can be feeling tired and unrefreshed upon waking. And clinical insomnia is defined as experiencing these symptoms 3 times a week or more over the course of 3 months. And this is a really important designation here, because last night I slept like a dream, let me tell you. The night before, I could not fall asleep. And that would be an insomnia experience or episode, which is different from ongoing, returning, or frequent bouts of that. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, start tracking that information about yourself. You might want to wake up in the morning while it's fresh in your mind, or as fresh as it can be, and write down, what I experienced, how long it took me to fall asleep, so you think, etc. And then if you're starting to see those patterns, you can say, you know what, I might go and see my doctor. And I'm going to talk about that in just a sec. So there's primary insomnia, which is sleep problems that aren't related to other health conditions or medications. And that's a lot of what CBTI does. So CBTI is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia specifically. The World Health Organization, I want to say 2 years ago. I don't know. It's all a blur. I don't know. Since the pandemic, everything is last year, but it's not. It's several years ago. But very recently, the World Health Organization has deemed CBTI the gold standard first treatment for insomnia due to how effective it is. So that's pretty cool. Secondary insomnia is regarding sleep problems that are caused by another health condition or medication. So this might mean that you might be taking a medicine that keeps you up for extended periods of time. It could also be related to a health condition such as sleep apnea, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I would actually say that's a contraindication to CBTI. We want to make sure that those medical conditions are looked at first before doing any sort of CBTI work.
I hope you like it.
So the causes of insomnia, and this was, these are what we are seeing with our clients frequently: stress and anxiety. That's what we see with our postpartum parents. A lot of, stress regarding falling asleep, staying asleep, maybe some anxiety about whether or not their child will wake up several times. If their child will wake up, that's a common concern, worries about their child, depression, chronic pain, medical conditions, medications, or substance abuse. And, the CBTI aspect that we can really work with is that stress and anxiety, sort of the limiting beliefs that make it hard for us to fall asleep. So I know someone in my life who, I won't tell you who it is, but we had a whole conversation about when I started this business. And he said, why do you want to work with adults? And I said, well, what I love the most about it is how we help babies and children is very similar to how we help adults. And she's like, well, how? It's like, well, parents or our adults really have an association or a limiting belief about how they sleep. And the woman that I was speaking to said, well, yeah, I'm curious about that. So you see the cogs begin to roll, as soon, it's like, I'm sure with the wealth of knowledge in this room right now, you tell someone that you work with people, or, I'm a psychotherapist or I'm a therapist, everyone starts to, or your doctor, it's like, look at my rash, right? Can you tell me what that rash is? This is what happens with me in sleep. So either if I'm speaking to a parent, everyone wants to confess their sins about what they do about sleep. And I'm like, hey, if it's working for you, it's working for me. But with adults, they start telling you all of the things that happen in their sleep. And this person said, I don't know if that's me. I sleep really well, but I can only sleep on my couch in front of the television. And I went, There we go. There's your limiting belief about sleep. That person goes to this. She goes, well, no. I sleep. But every time I go to my bed, I can't sleep. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Then we also see people that can't sleep in their bed, but they go on vacation and they sleep like a dream, like they've never slept before. That, again, these are symptoms of insomnia, and these are those limiting beliefs that can actually make it really hard for us to sleep. If anyone identifies with that, go ahead and raise your hand. You can show that solidarity. It's super common. Okay, so knowing that, it's important to know, do you have insomnia or poor sleep habits? And the cool thing is that if you're waking up, you fall asleep okay, you generally stay asleep, but you're not waking up refreshed, a lot of that can be helped and solved with some good old-fashioned sleep hygiene. And everything I'm going to tell you today, you're going to hate. So know that you like me now, but you may not as we go through, because I'm going to tell you all the things to not do that you really like doing, like being on your phone. I love my phone. I get it. I'm on my phone all the time. But a lot of us bring that phone to our bed. And then if you're like me, you're on TikTok watching all of the information about Vanderpump Rules, and I can't get enough of it. So then I keep doing it. And then I go to bed and I dream about Vanderpump Rules. Now, I'm a good sleeper. It's not really going to impact me a lot, but for some of you, it will. And for some of you, you're not doing that about Vanderpump Rules. You're reading the stressful thing that you have to do. And then your boss also has insomnia, so they're emailing you. And then you're like, well, I don't want to do this. Okay, so we're not going to do that. I'm going to get into all of this soon. Don't worry. But there is a difference between insomnia and poor sleep hygiene. Generally, poor or quality sleep can be improved by sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene, however, will not cure your insomnia. And that's really important. So today I'm going to give you everything that I want you to try before you speak with your doctor about insomnia. Okay. I'm going to tell you literally everything you need to do. And if you're doing that for 2 weeks and you're still waking up tired, you're having trouble falling asleep, and you're having trouble staying asleep, then you can say, look, I think I actually might have clinical insomnia, and there is something I want to do about that. So for individuals with chronic insomnia, relying solely on sleep hygiene practices may not improve sleep. In these cases, a more comprehensive treatment such as CBTI for insomnia may be necessary. CBTI is a structured evidence-based therapy that focuses on changing negative thoughts and behaviors related to sleep. I'm going to tell you all about it. I'll tell you exactly what we do in CBTI. It's actually, it surprises people. So I really want to share that, but we're going to talk about CBTI later. Before I move on, any questions? Are we happy? Okay, great. Okay, so sleep hygiene, essentially you think hygiene is cleaning, making sure you're all nice and clean and doing all the best to take care of yourself. That's exactly what sleep hygiene is. There are things that you can do to improve your sleep with or without insomnia. One of the most important things is a set of habits and practices that promote good sleep. And we are creatures of habit. You can create habits I think it takes 21 days to create an effective habit. So give yourself 21 days to implement these. Good sleep hygiene can improve sleep quality and reduce the risk of your poor sleep hygiene turning into limiting beliefs, right? If you're looking at your phone every night and you're having stress dreams and you say, look, I have insomnia, over time, it might actually develop into insomnia when we've created new behaviors and new limiting beliefs. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask everyone to do, and again, this is where you start to hate me, okay? So this is maybe where you go pee or you go grab a coffee if you want to pretend you didn't hear this part. So I want you to establish a regular sleep schedule, which people don't like to do, because if you are like me, on the weekends, I love a sleep in. I told you, I love sleep, and I like to stay up late. My chronotype, so chronotypes are a biological predisposition to be doing work well at certain times of the day. So maybe that is you're a night owl and you want to stay up late and sleep late. That's probably a natural predisposition. Maybe you are an early bird that likes to go to sleep early and wake early. But for me, I know that I'm more of that later. So on the weekends, I tend to stay up later and I sleep in. Now, for me, that's not a problem. And I really want to highlight that anything I say here today, if you are a good sleeper, if you are sleeping your 7 to 9 hours a night, you can ignore what I'm saying. Okay, you can ignore what I'm saying. You can come back to this presentation later and go back if it does become a problem. But if they do become a problem, this is what I would do first. Now, again, real life example. Last 2 weeks ago, feels like yesterday, I went to Scottsdale, Arizona for a conference, and they are 3 hours behind. And when I returned, my body clock, I was only there for about 4 days, but my body clock was really off. And so I could find it, I was finding myself having a lot of trouble falling asleep. I had to put myself on a schedule. That meant for 7 days, I went to bed and woke up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Okay. For me, that looks like going to bed at around 11 and waking up at around 7 or 10 to 6. And I did that every day for 7 days until I regulated my body clock again, my circadian rhythm. So you're going to do that. You are going to create a relaxing sleep environment. This means for some of you, it might mean not falling asleep with that TV on. It might mean removing the television from your room. I don't sleep with my phone in my room. My phone is in my office in another part of the house. I don't have anything with blue lights. So we have a lot of new evidence to show that specifically electronic items that have blue light, well, even if they're even saying there's so much blue light in people's kitchens that manufacturers are trying to change it because they're seeing an impact in how people fall asleep before bed. So if you can stay away from screens, computers, tablets, any humidifier, anything electronic, a phone charger that has a blue light, you are going to remove it from your room. Real life example. I had a client where we were doing some sleep work for the baby, and I walked into the nursery. This is an in-home consultation pre-pandemic. And I walked in and I said, "Oh, that monitor, it has a blue light on it. We should cover it." And she goes, "You know what? It's really not a problem." And I was like, I know on, our eyes right now are adjusted to the day. And so you can't really see how much of a problem it is, but come back at 2 o'clock in the morning when your eyes have adjusted to the darkness and just see how bright it is. So sure enough, we're sitting together, we're doing this whole, we're doing our sleep stuff for the baby, and our eyes start to adjust about 20 minutes later. And she says to me, "Hey, that's really bright." And I was like, "Yeah, it is really bright." So, if you're not sure if you want to convince yourself, go ahead and go into your bedrooms or try to wake yourself up in the middle of the night, and you will see just how bright that is. And blue light specifically has been shown to impact the level of melatonin that our body is producing. Melatonin is a hormone that signals to your body that sleep is next. And you can still produce it, but you might produce much less. So creating that relaxing sleep environment, that's all part of light. You want to be thinking about your sheets. Are you too hot, right? Are you too cold? The optimal sleep temperature, this will blow your mind, between 17 and 21 degrees Celsius, which is a lot cooler than people assume. But that actually provides the most optimal sleep environment because our body wants to reduce its temperature anyway. So if we can aid in that, that would be great. You are going to avoid caffeine and alcohol before bedtime. Now, caffeine is a stimulant. Caffeine can last in your body about 8 hours. I'm someone who has a lot of energy naturally. If I can't do afternoon coffee. If I do afternoon coffee, I'm mopping my floors at midnight, and I don't want to be doing that. And I'm not really good at mopping my floors, so no one wants me to do that. But that's actually some of the things I tell myself to do when I can't sleep. I'm like, if I can't sleep, you have to go clean the house. And then suddenly I'm asleep. That's a little trick for you. Anyway, avoid that caffeine. Alcohol, again, this is pretty surprising because, people talk about the nightcap or I have a glass of wine, I feel sleepy, and then I'm going to fall asleep. yes, you will fall asleep. But alcohol does two things. Number one, it's a diuretic. You're going to go up and you're going to wake up to pee several times a night. Nobody wants that. The other thing that alcohol does is it impacts the amount of REM sleep that you're getting. Now, if we're looking at your total sleep composition, meaning you fall asleep, there are 4 stages of sleep in a sleep cycle. Throughout the night, we cycle sleep. We go through a sleep cycle, we wake briefly, we fall back to sleep. We go through a sleep cycle, and we do this all night long, okay? No one actually sleeps through the night. We all wake several times. Now, within that sleep cycle, there are stages of sleep. There's 2 stages of non-REM sleep that are kind of light and drowsy. That's when you're watching Netflix and someone's like, hey, you're asleep. And you're like, no, I'm not. You are. You were in late stage of sleep. And then you go into a deeper stage of sleep, REM. That's where we dream. We wake up briefly, and then we go back to sleep. Now, studies on people who consume THC or a certain amount of cannabis before bed, and I'm speaking specifically about THC or alcohol, we have seen that their REM sleep decreases. What we also see is on nights when the people are not taking substances to sleep, their composition in that sleep cycle of REM sleep they have way more REM sleep than they ever have. So the body has a need to make up for the REM sleep. Now, if you're only sleeping in REM sleep, you're not going to feel great. We need all parts of our cycle. And so what does this tell us? Number one, it's going to make you feel like you can't sleep without the alcohol, sleep well without the alcohol or the substances. Number two, it tells us that our body needs REM because it's making up for it. So we need that REM sleep. So some people might say, I had 5 drinks, that's the best sleep of my life. Yeah, I bet you did. But what we need is we need that REM sleep. So all the parts of the cycle need to be there. This is a long tangent. Okay, we're good for time. Engaging in regular exercise. So going outside, moving your body. I can't stress this enough. My family went to Disney World about a month ago, and I actually had a revelation. Because we walked and moved literally nonstop. Disney World is not a relaxing vacation. Can I just tell you that? If you take nothing from this presentation, it's that Disney World is not a relaxing vacation. On that note, I did have the best sleeps of my life. I fell asleep easily. I stayed asleep easily. And I said to my husband on the vacation, I said, you know what? I don't think humanity is moving enough, because if we all moved this much, we wouldn't have sleep problems. I guarantee it. So lots of regular exercise, walking 30 minutes a day has been shown to increase sleep promotion. So falling asleep and staying asleep. Now, that limiting screen time before bed, I go back to that blue light discussion. I can't stress that enough. But even the content of the materials that we're looking at on our phone at this time, it can be stressful. We are living in stressful times. We have a name for it now. It's called doom scrolling. If I'm doom scrolling before bed and then just going to tuck in, your brain doesn't know that threat is not there right now. It's really important that we are limiting that screen time before bed if you are having trouble falling or staying asleep. Now, finally, I'm going to talk about relaxation techniques such as meditation or deep breathing. Now, we have a ton of evidence to show that regular practice of meditation does improve sleep quality. Where we can kind of miss the mark is the timing of the meditation. So if you are doing meditation, it's important that you're doing it in the daytime. Why? Because for some folks, you can get really deep into your meditation and actually enter stage 1 or 2 of sleep. So if you're really in the zone and you are doing a meditation, okay, it's 10 o'clock, 2 things are going to happen. We talk about homeostatic sleep pressure, okay? So sleep pressure is exactly what it sounds like. It is the pressure to want to fall asleep. It is organized by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain. And I always give the analogy that it's a balloon. So you wake up in the morning and your balloon starts filling up and filling up and filling up and filling up. Now, if you're me, if I take that 30-minute nap during the day, it's going to impact my ability to fall asleep because my sleep pressure will be far less at bedtime. Now, If you are doing your meditation before bed and your balloon is this taut, it's like, we're ready to go, we can't wait to sleep, and you meditate, well, now the balloon kind of looks like this. It's kind of floppy. And now you're like, great, I'm ready to go to sleep. But your body's like, hey, we just took a little micro nap. It was about 10 or 20 minutes. And now we're not going to be able to fall asleep for at least another hour. Be really careful about when you are advising your patients or clients on when they are meditating. So daytime meditation is impactful on sleep because it's reducing that stress. So meditation reduces stress. You're going to produce less cortisol, adrenaline, stress hormones. When you have those less stress hormones, you're going to be less stressed going to bed. So it's something that I really, I want to recommend, but the timing of the meditation needs to be intentional. Okay, so this is your arsenal. All right. So if you're like, all right, I don't sleep well, or I am not waking up refreshed, I don't feel great, then this is what I would like you to start with. Okay. If you do all of these, you're going to bed regularly, your room is a sleep oasis. You've eliminated substances, caffeine, alcohol, and certain THC before bed. Someone's going to ask me, well, what about CBD or CB something? We are still in the early stages of research. I know people are coming out with this all the time. For me, I only like recommending things that we know for certain, but people are looking into this. So stay tuned is my answer. Engaging in regular exercise, you're limiting your screen time, and you're doing some 10 to 20 minute meditation during the day. I want you to try this for at least 2 to 3 weeks, ideally. And then we can talk about whether or not this is an actual insomnia issue. Okay. And then let's talk about insomnia. You are the champion of sleep hygiene. You've been to this presentation. You're going to go home. You're sleeping like these really lovely rested people, or you're not. This is where we would talk about, okay, there's probably something that we can help with. So the first step is, I would say, is that we want to visit your doctor and have a chat. I think more and more medical professionals are steering away from medication, and I am not saying anything about medication. Medication can be life-changing for many people, but people would like to try, or doctors are looking to try CBTI first, so folks don't have to take it, they don't have to pay for it, they don't have to develop a dependency potentially, and you can do this on your own forever and ever and ever. So what is CBTI? And like I said, sometimes with those sleep hygiene, insomnia is still rearing its ugly head. This is where our CBTI comes in. It stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Insomnia, and it's a type of talk therapy that is designed to treat insomnia. Jamie, I think I'm speaking with a bunch of therapists, right? Or some therapists in the room?
It's a mixture, but it's mostly community members who work with older adults.
Amazing. Does anybody work? I mean, this, especially with older adults in our Rest My Best company, that's the predominant client base that we're seeing. We started the business to help postpartum parents, and we're getting a lot of older adults. So I'm curious if anyone is already practicing CBTI with their clients. Can you just raise your hand? I just want to get a sense of the knowledge, so I'm not educating people who don't need the education. Okay.
No,
great.
think like very CBTI 101.
Yes, perfect. And that's what this is.
Beautiful.
So this is
sorry, Amanda, before we continue, just a couple steps back. Carrie is asking, are there blue night lights an issue for kids' sleep, or is that different than electronic blue light?
No, that's such a good question. There is no difference between a blue light night and blue light. And I don't know why these companies make them with blue light. There's a very popular child, it's an okay to wake clock. So it tells the child, hey, it's okay to wake, or an alarm clock, and it glows blue all night long. And so the issue with that is I actually, I used one. This is before I did all of my training in sleep. I used one with my older daughter to help her, and her sleep got worse, and we couldn't understand why. And now I understand there is a giant orb in her room telling her to wake up all night. So if you do have the option to change the color of your light, stick to sleep friendly colors. So red, yellow, or orange colors are best for adults and children. Great question. Any other questions before I?
That's it for so far.
Amazing. Great. So it's like I said, a type of talk therapy that's designed to treat insomnia. CBTI aims to identify and change negative thoughts and behaviors that contribute to sleep problems. And it can be conducted individually or in a group setting, and typically involves several sessions over a period of weeks. What's really cool, although that we do work in 4 to 8 sessions, many of our clients are seeing tremendous relief from their insomnia symptoms in about 3 sessions, which is really surprising for most. This should not be something this is a brief intervention. This is not something that's ongoing. Now you can go back for a refresher or a reset, but this is not, a therapy that you would have to pay a lot of money over a lot of times. It's really brief, and that's what people love about it. The components of CBTI are something called stimulus control therapy. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about all of this in a second. Stimulus control therapy, sleep restriction therapy, relaxation training, and cognitive therapy. So the stimulus control therapy essentially is designed to help people reassociate their bed with sleep rather than wakefulness. The number one thing that people do when they are trying to sleep, and what I did on Tuesday night, is I laid in my bed trying to sleep. And what your brain is so smart, what your brain will do over a number of days or weeks is it will begin to associate your bed with wakefulness or the fact that you can't sleep. And so all of a sudden, people will call this the switch, where they're so tired, they're so exhausted, they lay their head on the bed, bing, wide awake. Now that's your brain saying, hey, when we're here, we're really awake. So we really try to help people reassociate their bed with that sleeping part. So an example would be to only go to bed when you are sleepy. And often what we find with our insomnia clients is they are trying to go to sleep. They wake up, they don't feel rested. So what do? They spend the whole day trying to be rested. They might be napping. They might try to go to bed at really early hours to get a good night's sleep. So they might say, you know what, I had such a bad night's sleep, or I didn't sleep at all. I'm going to go to bed at 9. Number one, folks are definitely sleeping more than they think they are. So when you look at the research, when you look at people on who say they had bad quality of sleep, and we actually evaluate them with the proper sleep equipment, not these things, by the way. I don't sleep with one of these. I mean, that's a whole other topic. I've done like whole media segments on sleep trackers, sleep watches. Throw them out. Actually, you should add this to the presentation. They add to a condition called orthosomnia, which is another thing that we would talk about in CBTI, which becomes a preoccupation with the quality and quantity of your sleep. So anyway, when you're looking at people actually having a sleep study done, they go in and out of light sleep, which reduces that sleep balloon, okay? So it doesn't matter how rested you feel, you're probably getting crappy sleep. But if you are constantly napping, or you've gone to bed at 9 and your balloon looks like this, let me tell you something, you're going to be up at 3 a.m. and you're going to be repeating the exact same thing. So this means getting out of your bed if you can't fall asleep, and using your bed for sleep and the other thing that you might be doing in your bed. Sleep restriction therapy. So again, it seems counterintuitive that in a program designed to help people sleep that we would restrict sleep. And this actually might scare people away, but this is a really evidence-based, effective part of the work. And it all goes back to that balloon, okay? So sleep restriction therapy involves limiting the amount of time spent in bed to improve sleep quality. And the goal being that we're increasing the amount of time spent asleep while reducing the time spent lying awake. Now, if I go back to this balloon, so many of my clients will tell me that they'll say, I really want to give myself a full opportunity to sleep. Or let's say they've had a lot of trouble falling asleep, or maybe a restless night of sleep. And they wake up in the morning and they say, oh no, it's 6 o'clock, but I'm going to sleep for 2 more hours, or whatever. They have a sleep in. Again, I know why you're doing that, but that's reducing the pressure in your balloon. So that sleep restriction therapy is where we start to really increase the pressure in the balloon. So you have no choice. Your body will take over and be like, we're sleeping. Okay. So don't be afraid of this. This is also not something that we would do long term. This is also another reason why we have to be careful about the clients that would do CBTI. So those who may have any condition that could be exacerbated by a lack of sleep. So some mental health concerns, or some medications, or, if a person works a job where they are required to have a certain amount of sleep for safety purposes, they may not be the best fit initially for CBTI for that reason. If you have a risk of falls, that also could be a concern. Relaxation training. So this is, when we do stimulus control, sleep restriction, and we also do relaxation training. And again, that's going back to that meditation, involves using relaxation techniques, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, visualization. And we do that during the day to help lower the stress levels of our clients. And finally, that cognitive behavioral therapy. This involves identifying and changing the thoughts and beliefs about sleep. So I did a segment a little while ago called Is Your Insomnia All in Your Head? Or sleep, is it all in your head? And the producer of the show wrote me back. She's like, I never identified with something more than this. Come on and talk all about it. I tell myself all sorts of things about my sleep. And that example I used of the person saying, I can only sleep outside my house. I can only sleep on my couch. I can only sleep with the television on. I can only sleep. If you are saying anything, I can only sleep if, I can tell you that we can help you change that and reframe that. Okay. The benefits of CBTI, like I said, the World Health Organization listed CBTI as a gold standard treatment. It's non-invasive, that does not involve medication, and has few side effects. And CBTI can improve sleep quality, duration, reduce daytime sleepiness, and improve the overall quality of your life. We covered a lot today, I know, but I essentially what I wanted to do today is I think a lot of people who are actually suffering with true insomnia don't get the help that they need because they try sleep hygiene and it doesn't work. And that's because insomnia is so much more than your sleep hygiene. And alternatively, a lot of people say, I'm an insomniac, when all we really need to do is improve our sleep hygiene. So everyone now has the tools and the hygiene tips to get the best sleep of their life or pass that on to their clients. Now, if after 14 to 21 days we're not seeing the improvement, you know that there's a solution. There are very few people. I know there are some people on this call right now who are going to tell me, Amanda, I'm great on 4 to 5 hours. And I will say, okay, but that's not what the science says. And look, I know that this is what I do for a living and I am selling something, so you can take it or leave it. There are so many, like sleep is so hot in terms of research right now. I would really encourage you to read Matthew Walker's book, The Promise of Sleep. That'll scare you into getting at least 7 hours. The amount your body does overnight during its sleep is significant. We know that in the early days of COVID, when we're trying to figure out what is going on, we found that people who slept or produced a certain amount of melatonin were doing really well with COVID recovery. And immediately people hear that and they say, oh, I need to go and take all of these melatonin supplements. No, actually, what the studies show and what the experts were saying, that people with good sleep habits who sleep well can actually regulate and produce better melatonin all on their own. So we know this everywhere. We see your cancer fighting cells deplete when we are not sleeping. We see the efficacy of some vaccines reduced on a bad night of sleep. So you should only get a shot when you're feeling your best, when you had a good night of sleep, by the way. Sleep is so essential to everything. And a lot, an overwhelming body of evidence points to the number 7 to 9 hours. You will have outliers in the 5% of people on either end who need a lot more. You'll see like superstar athletes say or report, I need 9 to 10 hours of sleep. And it's like, I believe it. And then you'll see people on the other end say, I only really truly need 6 hours of sleep, but that is very, very few people. Okay. And why I say, before you call us up, have a chat with your doctor, right? There might be other concerns that could be impacting your sleep. I can't have this presentation without talking about the complications of sleep apnea. A lot of times people think, oh, I snore, and they kind of laugh. Snoring is not normal, and it indicates that there is an obstruction of the airway. You have to have that evaluated, and you have to have a sleep study before we laugh about it, okay? So just go and chat with your doctor about that. Another common concern for folks is something called restless leg syndrome. And restless leg syndrome is literally what it sounds like. You're moving all night long, and that can also be easily treated. But before we do any of that, just a quick visit with your doctor, monitoring your symptoms, keeping a sleep diary will be really effective in getting treatment quickly. And you can be like, I did this presentation, I did a diary. They'll be like, great, now that's the first step for me done. And now I'm going to order all of these tests and things to see what's going on.
Amanda, we have Barbara who's asking if you can put the name of that book in the chat, or
Yes, I
we
can.
if you could send me that resource and I can send it out to everyone post event.
Yes.
I think all of you can already hear, but Amanda, I can't even tell you, is the biggest advocate for research. Every single waking moment, Amanda has her foot in something, research, something. Like sleep is her absolute passion. I think all of us can really hear that today. So thank you, Amanda, for your passion and this energy to talk about sleep. It's something that not a lot of us really think about. And making sure that everyone gets their much needed quality of sleep. I know myself, I've taken away so much information to really reflect on, some good, some bad, that I need to really change my sleep habits.
I feel like, your comment about research, I'm like, is this a secret reason I'm always in school? So I have access to these academic libraries because I just want to, it's the teacher in me, right? You teach students for so long, you can't say anything without backing it up. So it's my inclination as well. But thank you, Jamie.
Also, Amanda is such a huge sleep advocate and is very, very, very active on literally every one of your major news outlets. So always keep an eye out because Amanda's probably going to be on TV one day or another.
Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll stop.
Allison is saying the presentation has really helped her to not discount the importance of sleep because it is so important.
I just want to highlight that, I know we have a range of folks here today doing a range of things, but I've sort of done my mental health journey backwards. I started off as a teacher, and I'm going back and I'm doing my education kind of backwards. And what I found really interesting when I was doing my social work degree is we would do all of these extra trainings. I would do a PD with the placement that I was at. And, it's like, we're doing a CBTI thing, we're doing a DBT thing. And the very first thing is evaluate the sleep of your clients. How are they sleeping? And I'm always so shocked by this because it is not discussed enough. It's also not treated. So if someone is saying, actually, if you just slept, you might feel better. You might not even need this therapy. You might not need to come here. You might, I'm so curious why we're not talking about it more. It's everyone's, I mean, I think we're unpacking years and years of sleep is for the weak feelings. I had someone, and I got quite offended because I'm a passionate person. But I sort of said, you know, when I'm feeling kind of low in the afternoon, I don't drink coffee. I have a 20-minute nap. And someone said to me, there's a lot I'd be doing that wouldn't be 20 minutes. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's so restorative, because it is. You know, we all think, you know, taking a nap is laziness. Taking a nap is increasing your productivity. It's everything. I mean, it can be restoring. If you're getting sick, that nap is helping your immune system learn how to fight illnesses. I mean, and it's free. It's free and it's lovely. It's lovely. I'm so obsessed with sleep. So just do it more.
We have a private question here. They're asking, what is the medication you can take to curb drinking before bed, if you're allowed to say?
I don't know that I said that there's a medication to curb drinking. I don't know, or if I said it, I misspoke. That would probably be a discussion I would have with your doctor. Just, you know, I know that I'm thinking there's something called Champex that people use for smoking cessation. I don't know if that would have the same results for drinking. But if you are struggling with alcohol consumption, I would just have an honest conversation with your doctor about reducing that, because they have probably a lot, if you're looking specifically for medicine, they could probably be a better help.
And then we also have Jackie, who's asking, where can I get more information on restless legs?
If you have restless leg syndrome, or you suspect you do, your doctor will probably order a sleep study. Now, I think post-pandemic, or not post, but you know what I mean, emergency pandemic, people are now paying attention to sleep a lot more. I think you might have to wait for that sleep study, but it's worth getting on the list. But in order for that to be diagnosed, you do have to have a sleep study. So your very first place that you should go is your doctor. They will see how often you're moving your legs, and I do believe there's medication that's involved in that treatment as well.
And then we also have a private question. They're wondering, for Rest My Best, what does someone who's interested in becoming part of the program, what does that entail, and how did they start?
In the what part of the program?
Rest My Best, if they're interested in CBTI.
Yeah, so you would head over to restmybest.com. And we actually ask you to do 3 assessments before booking a call. And I mentioned earlier in this presentation some contraindications of CBTI, and that's what we're assessing. So we ask you to do something called a STOP assessment. That is looking at things, signs and symptoms of sleep apnea. We ask you to do 3 assessments. You're going to input your score on our call, and then you can book a discovery call with myself or a member of the team, and we can talk you through exactly what we do and how we do it. Essentially, it would be a much shorter version of this presentation. So I would take a look at that, but make sure that you do the assessments before to make sure that you're a good candidate. Now, we will tell you. So if you fill out the form and your scores are, you know, not appropriate, we would jump on a call anyway to tell you why, and some things that you should talk with your doctor about.
I'm seeing a lot of questions and statements pertaining to the medications and supplements. I know these are a lot of things that might have worked with some doctors, but just repeating that none of us are medically licensed professionals or physicians. So definitely going to your doctor first to see what works for you.
And I love that Rebekah talked about magnesium as a first line for restless leg. A lot of folks have found magnesium to be helpful in general for sleep. Specifically, the magnesium, I can't pronounce it, it's like glycalcinate. Yeah. That specifically can be very helpful for reducing some stress and anxiety before bed. Some people have also reported strange dreams while taking magnesium. So that's something to consider as well.
So I know you mentioned it a little bit already at the beginning of the presentation, but we had quite a few people join a little bit late. So if you could just reiterate why you decided to move from Baby's Best Sleep and then start Rest My Best.
Yeah, well, I still do Baby's Best Sleep. I love what I do. And we started Baby's Best Sleep because when the children or the babies are sleeping, so are the parents. And when the parents can sleep, they can show up as their best self. Now, what happened is that for a small section of our clients, about 10% of our clients, they were still experiencing insomnia symptoms after their baby is sleeping. And often that happens when their circadian rhythms are off. So your circadian rhythm is an internal body clock that tells you when to go to sleep and when to wake up. And if you have had experiences where you have been woken up every day at 2 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning to feed your baby, let's say your baby sleeps after that, and your body is continuing to wake you up at 2 and 5 and 2 and 5. So now we sort of say, oh gosh, well, I never, I'll never sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning again. And then now we're looking at the clock. It's so funny. There is a huge, maybe not huge. I get all the news alerts about sleep, but there is an article everywhere over every newscast about how looking at your clock can perpetuate insomnia. I'm like, that's in our program, because it does. It's clock watching. So that parent wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, oh, it's 2 o'clock in the morning again. Here I go. I'm never going to fall asleep. That's my limiting belief. I can't. And so we lay in bed, So that's where the birth of Rest My Best came. We really wanted to be able to help everyone sleep, including those grownups. And now what we are seeing is that we're helping a lot of older adults who have potentially developed limiting beliefs about their sleep. Now, as we get older, our sleep needs do reduce, but only ever so slightly. So we'd be looking at 6 to 8 hours instead of 7 to 9. Now, what can happen is when we have the natural reduction of sleep, our older adults start to tell ourselves stories about what that means about their sleep. Well, now I can't sleep, or I can't So that's where I think we're seeing that increase in that population in terms of our clientele.
And I think all of us can really say that working in this field, a lot of us sometimes, especially working from home, can't really separate that professional to private life either. And then that can really impact sleep and stress and anxieties.
I have never been asked. So from 2020 to 2022, I was constantly asked to speak on sleeplessness and insomnia for several news organizations because it was such a problem. And that's largely in part to people moving from office work to work from home and being able to work at all times. We really saw this impact on women specifically, or people who identify as mothers, who were all of a sudden both caretaking during the day and working long and prolonged hours in the nighttime to manage both their work and the child care. So we really did see that insomnia or lack of sleep, lack of quality of sleep, that directly correlated with that work from home life. So, that's a really easy thing to set boundaries on. And I think you're going to start to see more discussion in the workplace about those boundaries as employees start to push back, rightfully so, on when they are prepared to look at emails and when to work. And I believe that Ontario actually has implemented a legislation within the last couple of years about when companies can and should be sending out email communication.
For sure. Does anyone have any other questions they want to ask Amanda? Maybe you might have some lingering questions later on. We will, again, have this presentation recorded on our website after the event. We'll also have all the contact information if you are interested in Rest My Best, or if you want to pursue more in terms of that program.
Thank you so much for having me. Feel free to email me directly. It's amanda@restmybest.com. I'd love to answer any of your questions or direct you to any resources. Thank you so much for having me today, Jamie.
Thank you,
and everyone
Amanda.
else.
Yeah. So with that, this concludes day one of our Positive Aging Summit. So just a reminder that we will be continuing tomorrow bright and early at 10 a.m. with Vera Chang, who will be discussing how to spot the signs and symptoms of caregiver burnout, learning coping strategies, as well as how to properly support yourself as a caregiver. Then to end our summit, we will have our very own Carrie Briscoe, who's currently in this call, from Schlegel UW Research Institute for Aging, who'll be then highlighting one of Murray Alzheimer Research and Education Programs resources, the By S4S guides, which were designed by people living with dementia and care partners to help enhance their well-being. And as a reminder, the sessions from today have been recorded and will be made available on the ESS website after the event, as well as any contact information and slides for each of the presentations today. So then again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact myself or Cynthia if you have any other questions or feedback. We would welcome that so much. So then again, we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.